Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us. Hello, and welcome to our show, Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us, on October 7th, 2018, here on Kardec Radio Facebook page. I encourage all of you to tell your friends about the Kardec Radio Facebook page, and also to tell everybody about Kardec Radio itself, that you can get on your Android or your Apple device. You can listen to Spiritism 24 hours a day, and all you do is look up in your App Store or Play Store, look up Kardec, Kardec, after Allan Kardec. This is what we all start with, the Spirits book, Allan Kardec. So look up Kardec Radio. You can add that to your device, and then you can listen to Kardec Radio 24 hours a day. There's many programs by a lot of contributors. There's also many programs and a lot of great contributors here on the Kardec Radio Facebook page, in which you can learn more about Spiritism. I have talked to quite a few people throughout the United States, and they all say, well, where's the Spiritist Center next to me? And for many of them who don't live next to the major cities, I say, well, I think you need to create your own. And some people have been doing that. In fact, I know one person started one in North Carolina, and actually I sent him some of the books I had. Oh, there's Sylvia. Hello, and blessings to you. So I sent him some books we had. I also sent him a PDF of my Spiritism 101 so that he can share, to anyone who comes to the meetings. So if you are thirsting for a Spiritist Center next to you, you don't have one, I would recommend you start one yourself. Do what my wife and I did. We put up a little notice in the bookstore or the supermarket, anywhere that had a place. Oh, there's Barry. Yes, Barry, I was just talking about you setting up your own Spiritist Center. So, set up your Spiritist Center where you are. It's not easy. Luckily, we have Kardec Radio. We have a lot of resources for you. We have Kardec Radio. We have Kardec Facebook page. I have my blog, nwspiritism.com. Also, I have my YouTube and BitChute channels. And so there's links to that on my site. There's presentations like this, which I do every Sunday at 7 Eastern to 4 Pacific, all time zones in between and around the world. And I also have a lot of 5 to 10 minute videos on different aspects of Spiritism. So if you're getting people together, show these videos, give them the Spiritism 101 on PDF. Also, all these Spirits books, Allan Kardec Spirits book. Oh, and there's Barry. Yeah, you're welcome for the books. The Spirits book, you can get that on all of Allan Kardec's book. You can get that on PDF. Even this is like my favorite book after the Spirits book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. Explains so many things that I didn't really understand from the Bible before. Again, Allan Kardec's main books are all on PDF. You can get those. They're wonderful. It doesn't cost anything. On my site, if you go to his picture on my site, Allan Kardec's picture, it'll take you to the EDICEI bookstore, and you can order his books also from that bookstore. They're also available on Amazon.com. So I understand, I totally understand. That's why my wife and I started our own little center here on Bainbridge Island. Because it's just, it was too far for us to get over to Seattle on the ferry. It took too long, etc. So, I think, we are just the beginning. We are just the seed, as I've been told in the meetings I have been to in Rio de Janeiro. And, that over and over again, said, you're just a seed. You're planting seeds. Don't expect to see much, right? And that's what I would tell everyone else who are first getting into Spiritism and really wants to talk to people around this wonderful doctrine, because it is life-changing. It puts everything into perspective. And this is you cannot believe how it has affected my life. I'm far from perfect. I want to tell everybody, I still lose my temper sometimes, but it's a lot less. I'm more calm. I understand that's what's thrown at me, right? That mud and those hurdles and that flat tire and, that bad, deposit in that bank or whatever. Those are just little tests, losing your job, whatever. Those are all little tests. And we all have Allan Kardec to thank for that, to bring. He's the codifier of Spiritism. He brought the Spirit's book to us. He's not that. No, I'm not putting down any other people that, talking to high spirits and so forth. But Allan Kardec has done it differently than anyone I have seen in our, modern age. You see many people bring information from spirits, and a lot of that is very valid. I see many, many similarities to what Spiritism tells us. But what Allan Kardec did is he brought information from many spirits, and he was not a medium per se himself. He codified a list of questions. Here in this book, there's 1,019 questions. Questions that, when I first read it, it was revelatory that he wanted to ask the spirits, the high spirits, the spirit world. He asked the same question to multiple mediums throughout Europe, and he did not codify the answer until the answers were similar or almost identical. And therefore, he just had several, through different mediums to make sure that one wasn't talking to another, etc. So this is why, Allan Kardec is so important. He brought forth from the Spirit of Truth, as referenced by Jesus, the third revelation, which will give us more information. Why were we brought this information? Because at the time, Allan Kardec codified in the 1850s, our culture had progressed, our technology had progressed, we could get a different bit of information. The same thing with the Old Testament, Moses, the first revelation, Jesus Christ, the second revelation. Each time they tell us something new and they tell us more. It's just like children, right? You don't tell a first grader about algebra. You tell them about, numbers, right? A third grader, you start adding and subtracting. The same thing with us. The spirit world is only going to tell us what we can absorb. And this is why they have said that we are now ready to absorb the lessons and the information from the spirit world. Why are we here? What are we doing here? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why do good things happen to bad people? All the chaos, all the injustice in the world, it really has a reason. And, we may not like it, right? But the reason is that this is a planet of atonement where we pay for our past wrongs. And in actually paying for past wrongs, that is not really a good description. I should say that we are learning the lessons we have failed before. And nothing that happens to us is a punishment per se. As children, as like if you've seen them, when you slap them on the hand and put them in a corner, they cry because it's like the worst thing you ever did. We too respond to anything that lies in our path, and quite rightfully so. I totally understand, as that was a great punishment by something. No, it was a lesson sent to us, and this is the lesson of Spiritism. And in that, what I did is tonight we're talking about time spent on productive matters. So what I've done is I read a poem by the Andre Louise, and it was in the book Spiritual Wisdom, Mists of Hope. And this is the book I wrote. This is How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism. And that poem, Spiritual Wisdom, Mists of Hope, it had 24 verses, and each verse was just another thing. Is okay, this is how we should live. This is Andre Louise, which you've heard of. That's all the different, from Astral City, which you can find in a film, and it's in Portuguese, but it's got great translations in English. You can see, and he wrote a whole cycle of books, which are wonderful books. But No Solar, which is Astral City, is the film here. You can buy his book again on the bookstore or in Amazon. He gave us this poem, and now I'm on the third verse, and what he said was time spent on productive matters. Now, the first two verses was trust in God and yourself, and then the second verse was a serene conscience. And these they build up upon one another. And this verse is time spent on productive matters. So let's talk about that. So what the spirit world, what does he mean? So this is why I wrote this book. I wrote all the information I've read about Spiritism in English, and and I'm sure a lot of people know more than I do, and I encourage you to explore for yourself. But I wrote this book so I can go through each verse and explore, okay, what did Andre Louise mean about time spent on productive matter? What should we do about that? So in our mind, we do spend our time on productive matters, don't we not? We wake up, we get ready for work, we commute, we work, commute back home, eat dinner, watch TV, surf the internet, right? Whatever, all necessary to decompress after work, and then the cycle starts all over again. We do this in order to make a living. We contribute to a company or organization. In other words, we are productive, and rightfully so. We should be proud of that. During the weekends, we get the required chores done around the house with some time left over to rest. Well deserved after 5 straight days of dawn to dusk grind. And if we have children, our small slice of free time is set to almost zero. Now, this is the rhythm of our modern society. We eke out what little pleasures we are able, thinking all the while that we deserve our occasional downtime after so much dedication to making money for an organization whose leadership thinks little or not at all about us. Such is the kernel of our modern lives. Now, yes, I exaggerate the monotony for many people who truly enjoy their work and the balance of their lives. I'm completely off the mark. But what I wish to emphasize is the daily routine in which we trade our time and talent for money. It's important, right? We have to make money. We have to live. We have to keep a roof overhead. We have to help our children. We have to help our family. We have to, those things we have to do. And our notion of time spent on productive matters is centrally focused on this trade for time for reward. The more, oh, thank you, Leslie. The more our time is worth, the more profit that can be made from our labor, the more recompense, right? As we trade our time during the workday, we engage in many conversations, meetings, and interactions with others. Most deal with the task at hand or pleasures to grease the daily effort to hit the targeted goal, does it not? Now, is this what is meant by when the Spirit world says time is spent on productive matters? Well, first, we must explore what the Spirit world considers productive use of time. Now, there is a revealing chapter titled Work in the book Thought in Life by the Spirit Emmanuel, psychographed by that wonderful Brazilian medium, Francisco, also called Chico C. Xavier, which illustrates the role work plays in our physical and spiritual existences. Let me read to you what was said in this book, in the chapter titled Work. This is what Emmanuel told Chico Xavier. If we wish to mentally register the light of higher planes, we must be willing to embrace work as our daily sustenance. In the past, we looked upon work as something belonging to the lower classes or to condemn slaves. Schools, the arts, housework, industry, and farming were previously assigned to slaves, while the supposedly free lived in a state of comfortable idleness. Today, however, we know the law of work is the path to freedom. Without this law, the mental world would fall into slumber and stagnation. To flee its dictates is like stepping to the roadside to watch the traffic of a Volusian path, leaving behind all those who choose the illusion of laziness. The man who practices deception will not only suffer for the unfortunate act of stealing what belongs to the general good, he will regret the misfortune of having prepared for himself a prison cell that stifles his best spiritual faculties. The lower regions are a beehive of activity. When he's talking lower regions, saying the umbra, which I've talked about before, like the lower zone. I'll carry on. Beyond the obligation to work principle, though we are remunerated, we must reach a point where we feel the pleasure to serve. In the natural sequence of our development on earth, our incarnated spirit is compelled to continuously struggle in order to survive. Man receives the water, the sun, and the sustaining atmosphere for free. However, to assure his physical well-being, he has to labor and suffer for the protein and carbohydrates he needs. Although captive to the requirements of the material plane in which he dwells for a time, he can nevertheless begin to experience the elation of voluntary service to mankind. Once he opens his soul to the reflection of the divine sphere. Action transforms the environment, service transforms the man. Now, what does he say? The Spirit Emmanuel describes a process where we must learn to labor, first to supply our basic needs, next for higher desires. In this active effort, we are creating habits of productive activity. We see this in our daily lives. The parent who retired, but who must keep busy. The neighbor who's independent, but volunteers and runs around more than when she used to get paid for her time. Most people, after a lifetime of functioning at an aspect of gainful employment, are unable and unwilling to slow down. They have programmed themselves to stay busy and useful. They have a sense of wishing to serve. Now, all of this is habits we must produce because we are not idle in the spirit world. There is not an Elysian fields. If you are the type of person that goes into heaven, you do not go into heaven and you do not sit in a cloud and rest for all eternity. As said in the spiritual book, when they asked about heaven, they said, if you did nothing for eternity, that would be hell, right? You are useful. You serve. You learn. You go to colleges. You become a guardian angel. You become a person to help people in the heaven. You become, people to help solve problems here on earth. You see this all in the books by Andre Luis. You are a very busy person. These are habits that we will have. And in fact, when Emmanuel talks about work, and learning to serve, one of the things when Chico Xavier was interviewed on Brazilian TV, he was a Brazilian medium. They asked him, okay, Chico, what do you want to tell people? What's the message for all of Brazil? And you know what he said? It's very interesting. He says, people, you should work and stop complaining. Do the work you're supposed to do. Do it honorably and stop complaining. Now, that to me, when you hear things like that, I cannot tell you how many meetings I've been at where the spirits will say that in that same, they're not like being mean to you, but they're saying, oh, no, come on. It's like a teacher who won't put up with your, what, right? It's like, no, this is what you need to do. And this is when people are mediums, or they think they're talking to mediums, and people, when you get that truthful nugget of like, oh, okay, like, you guys, I've heard so many times, you need to work harder. You're on this earth for a mission. You need to work harder, bear down. And like, this is really the messages we get from the spirit world. It's amazing how many NDEs have had people work, read about, or people have had them themselves, where they're in a meeting and they go through, okay, this is your life. Okay, yeah, this one, I think you need more time on earth, right? And they're not saying it to say, you loser. They're saying it to say, no, this is the process you are. This is what we need to be. And this is why this is so important, right? This is why we are on earth in time unspent on productive matters, right? So, whereas during our years, toiling in a 9-to-5 job, we tell ourselves we're only doing it for the money. We actually want both, right? We need the task. We actually need to work and the compensation. We enjoy helping our friends, neighbors, and family. Usually, when we look back at our lives, the most satisfying times are those of collective effort and service. And all of this sets us up for what is ahead in the spirit world. So, and then what they say, and this is what has been told, in the higher realms of spirit, work is not imposed on anyone. A person who is conscious of truth understands that doing good attunes him to the love of God. He surrenders to this fact of his own free will. This is why in the higher realms, he who serves progresses towards the height of glorious immortality. He reproduces with himself the marvels of heaven that surrounds us everywhere. What are we being told? We're being told that productive use of time is more than gainful employment, the act of creating an object or serving. It is the process of instilling the habit and pleasure of effort spent for the benefit of others, outside of our own enjoyment, although we derive happiness in service to the greater good. Now, in our quest from childhood to adolescence to young adulthood to middle age to old age, we often start out as lazy children, at least according to our parents. I know I did. Then we realize the positive attributes of applying ourselves. It takes a long time, right? We finally mature into a young man or woman who knows how to study, pass the tests before us. When we enter the job market, we are ready to start earning. After all those years of toiling for a piece of paper instead of a paycheck, we become fascinated with handling our own money and determined to spend it on ourselves. There is an entire list of necessities we feel we must buy to set up our own household. We become obsessed with earning more to pay for what we perceive as the absolute minimum required to be comfortable. After our education is complete, we step on the treadmill and we don't realize anything else. We construct a laser focus on gaining more wealth. Now, I'll tell everybody here, I lost my 20s and 30s in a haze of pursuit of more. I have memories mostly of work, of striving to climb up the ladder of management. I have fleeting glimpses of, maybe vacations, but mostly of accumulating great debt and wondering how to pay it off. I dedicated myself, as so many others did, in consumption. I never gave a second thought to helping the community. I didn't think about my family's spiritual health, and I didn't have time to let the love of God and Jesus inside me. Instead, I was busy working, ever working, trying to figure out how to increase my wages. And unfortunately, my family shared my desire for wealth and what it could buy. Our lives revolved around finding more material goods to purchase. Happiness was going to the mall and finding something to take home. My trash cans were full of boxes, store bags, and wrapping material. In the book, in the way, the life, the way, the truth, and the life, by the Spirit, again by Spirit Emmanuel, psychographed by Chico Xavier. A chapter starts out with a message from Jesus, Luke, chapter 12, verse 20. Now, who is going to get what you amassed for yourself? In this chapter, it tells us this: within all human groups beats the concern with making money. The spirit of profit reaches the simplest areas of life. Children who have barely left infancy display a desire to selfishly accumulate things. Nowadays, mothers abandon their homes to babysitters for several hours of the day in order to enjoy the lucrative lifestyle. In this way, most people turn their evolutionary progress into a stress-filled race. Beyond the grave, the final stop for all who have left the cradle, the truth is waiting and asks, so, what have you brought with you? The unfortunate ones will answer that they have accumulated physical assets in which they intended to ensure their own and their loved ones' peace of mind. However, when their achievements are examined, they find out that such victories are crushing defeats instead. They hold no value for the soul, nor do they bear the stamp of lasting goods. Very revealing. If I had not discovered Spiritism with the help and guidance of my spirit mentors, I would have answered, I have brought absolutely nothing except regrets. I would have spent my entire life in the same cycle that I started out in college, desperately thinking of how to earn more. Because my tendency to continue spending more than I earn. After all, the only happiness I could think of was the pleasure that money could attain. I was one of the billions on our planet who have been educated and lured into the consumer society, where God, devotion, spirituality, and living frugally are frowned upon and actually ridiculed. Thank heavens for those who have had the strength to live outside of the vast and wide treadmill of buy, and buy more to be examples of what life could be, free of excessive encumbrances. Well, I'll say right now, I understand the desire to accumulate to provide for the needs of your loved one. Absolutely. We must think about what receiving something for nothing entails, though. Working hard to achieve a goal places the attainment at a higher level. If you buy your daughter a car, then that car becomes just an object that can be replaced. But if your daughter found odd jobs, worked hard during the summer, saved for years to afford a car, then she can see every day what real work begins. Real work bought her a car, but more importantly, it taught her the lesson that applying dedication and perseverance brings victory. She will now hold her car as more than a hulk of steel and technology that can be easily replaced, but as a reward for her sweat. She will evaluate that car in relation to the effort she put into it. She will be proud of her accomplishment. These are things we as parents can do. I'll give a real life example. I bought a smartphone for my son. He put his phone in his jacket pocket and left his jacket on the ground. It was an expensive iPhone that I bought him. The jacket and phone were both stolen. Then I made the mistake of replacing the iPhone with another one. Months later, he was paddleboarding on the water, and of course, being about 15 or 16, he had his phone on him, fell into the water, thereby wasting one more phone. It didn't seem to bother him since Dad would buy another one. Unfortunately for him, I got a little smarter. I found an old phone, not a smartphone. It was only good for calling and texting, the old flip phone types, and gave it to him, telling him that he would have to earn the money to buy what he wanted. A week later, a friend of his accidentally kicked the old phone off a dock. Although why he would leave on the phone on the dock is beyond me. He was given a great gift. He could now experience life without a mobile phone, just like I grew up. He found a job and earned the money to buy a phone he wanted. He now takes better care of it than he did the ones I purchased. When I mentioned how carefully he treated his new phone, he told me that he had to because he bought it. And of course, we both laughed. The moral of the story is that giving something away without cost could be the worst thing you could do. You read this over and over again. This is why the books of that Andre Louise are so good, because they'll give you instances of women spirits coming trying to help their daughters or sons because they gave them too easy of a life. They never had to work anywhere, right? They did not take care of anything. They wanted just to live free and with pleasure, and they weren't given the gift of working for themselves. The spirit tells us all the time is when you prune a tree, it comes back stronger. And when you prune your own desires, and when you tell yourself, no, I'm not going to have that until I earn that, and I'm going to give time to things I need to give time to for spirituality and materiality, you become a stronger person. So we're not meant to learn to live on earth without earning our keep, without understanding that anything worth owing is worth working for. If we are given a gift, it may be a welcome diversion, but it doesn't become precious in the same manner that we cherish that which we label hard to retain. Now, the spirit world fervently desires us to comprehend that effort, and I think most of us do. Not just the act of working, but the satisfaction of a job well done and the pleasure of seeing the results is a gift. This insight should be ingrained into our character because it will be a prerequisite for advancing in the spirit hierarchy. I've had many jobs. Well, I've had some jobs which I hated, which I had to do. I had to last as long as I could until I get another job. But some job I just love. When I worked for Beckman Instruments and I worked on designing medical devices, those were just wonderful experiences because you knew you were helping people. We spent so much time trying to figure out how to get the small amount of blood out of these preemie babies and how to do the blood test with very small amounts of blood. That I got paid for it, I got rewarded for it, but even beyond that, it was a great group of people. It was fun to do, and we were actually helping society. Now, how do we balance that, right? The complicated process, at least for me, was in learning how to be productive in working for a living and in spiritual growth. And I don't blame anyone. I have spent decades just forgetting spiritual growth, right? So I'm your example number one. I fully recognize that many more enlightened people completely understand the need to allocate time and space for spiritual enlightenment. Again, as I say, regrettably, I was not one of those. First, for those who have been hardworking and productive throughout their career and have made a substantial amount of money, there's nothing to be ashamed about as long as you gained it honorably. Spiritism tells us this: money does not imply evil. Instead, the apostle to the Gentiles explained that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. People are not to be condemned for their financial wealth, but for their incorrect use of it. For it is by means of the obsession of ownership that pride and idleness, those two goals of human misfortune, set up shop within souls, thus compelling them to wander away from the light eternal. The money that comes into your hand in the correct way, which only your conscience can examine under the divine light, is a friend looking for your wholesome guidance and humanitarian counsel. You will answer to God for the guidance you have given it, but woe to you if you use this beneficial power in the dark edifice of inequity. So what are they telling us? Use your capital wisely and not for any nefarious purposes. And you are free to live in any or as many houses as you wish, drive multiple cars. Don't feel guilty. Your monetary success was all part of the plan. And if you're still the nice, humble person you have always been, then you are victorious beyond measure. In the Spirit's book, they ask, what's the hardest trial? What they say is the hardest trial is becoming rich. Now, I'm sure everyone will laugh at that because, I like to have that trial. But actually, when you think about your life in different lives and learning different things, being rich is extremely hard. First, it's hard to be humble. Second, you have all sorts of people letting you get away with doing terrible things, being rude, cheating people, not paying people. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever worked with rich people before, but half the time when you don't get paid, it's because someone rich and you're just too small to be paid, or they don't care. And you can contact them, and they may take 6 months, or you might have to sue them and get it, 6 years from now. It's just so easy to be not a nice person if you're rich. Now, for those who remain to be a nice, humble person, caring about other people's attitudes, understanding other people and where they're coming from, then that is an absolute victory. Much more than I would be here, being middle class, because I have to work all the time. I live practically hand to mouth, not that bad, but as most people live, they live paycheck to paycheck. But so you have to be on the go, and and since you want people to be nice to you, you're nice to people, and if you're spiritual, you're Christian, whatever, Buddhist, you're always nice, right? So, but the problem is when people are rich, is they're given a pass, and it's not their fault per se. It's just the environment they live in. And I'm not saying rich people are bad or anything like that. I'm just saying it's a hard trial. It really is a hard trial. Now, as for me, in this life, I've never had that problem, right? A plethora of riches was not part of my life plan this time around. I was born, as I said before, in the middle class, and I will exit middle class. Not a bad place to be. It means I've had to learn to constantly hustle for my wages. I never had the luxury to sit idle and wait for the next opportunity. When one job ended, I had to quickly find another. Now, my special problem, that's a lot of people's problem in the, people in my class and lower class, and even people who a lot of people would consider rich, but they work all the time for it, was that I had no time for anything else. Of course, I actually did, right? Of course, we all know it's a matter of priorities. I chose to rest and reward myself for working hard, not thinking of anything else but my current desire. I truly believe that the spirit world knew they were working with a stubborn, materialistic, focused person in me. They read my personality perfectly and realized that subtle hints wouldn't force me to expand the horizon to become spiritually aware. Even marrying a woman, my wife, who was kind, gentle, gracious, and religious, didn't deter me from my single-minded dedication to material yearnings. My poor wife, who had to put up with me, was raised a good Catholic girl and had to teach me even to make the sign of the cross. I didn't know. I was Church of England, Episcopalian. So, she did that so she wouldn't be embarrassed when I met her parents. And it's harder for me, a left-handed person, than most people appreciate, since I have the tendency to take whatever people show me and do the opposite. And I found if I did the motions fast enough, no error would be detected. So hence, for me to get out of this cloud, this mindset of work, 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 make more money because I want more things, I had to be shocked. And as I'm telling you the story, I want you to think about what in your life, because everyone's going to have this. There are so many signs and signals that the spirit world gives us. And I'll be honest, until I had the shock, and then I actually thought back on other things I didn't understand. These were signs and signals by the spirit saying, that path is not very good idea, or you should think about this. So I was so single-minded, right? I just sit there and I just go for it. So, and I've talked about this before, but to summarize, what happened to me is my wife told me about a future event with great detail, specificity as you cannot believe, as to make it most improbable that could be a random guess of what would happen more than 9 to 10 months in the future. And my wife told me she was given this prediction more than 10 years before we were married. Now, from that seed, my spare time, so then it happened, right? It's like, oh my God, okay. Because he told me other things that were happening, and I always dismissed it. From that seed, my spare time was taken up in research and discovery of predetermination. Now, all of a sudden, I had time, right? I had time. And I didn't know that was, my spiritual quest. But, that became like, how could someone tell the future? Do you understand that that in this culture, almost nobody believes that, right? And that if you say our lives is predestined, just saying that our lives are predestined, that implies a whole intelligence above, around, about us. It's so superior to us, right? That means we are pieces on a game board practically. So before, my spare time was dedicated to mindless watching TV or equally mundane pastimes, play golf or whatever, and was now totally concentrated on learning how could my life be planned out? What does that mean to my entire mental foundation of philosophy? And through this search, I found Spiritism, or rather, I was led to find Spiritism. I didn't know it yet, but my life was changed. Finding out that an entire other world was regulating and watching us didn't consciously lead me to portion out my day between material and spiritual endeavors. What occurred was a natural progression. Now, as I read and made the teaching of the Spiritist doctrine part of me, the old cravings to mindlessly satisfy myself in front of the television gradually faded away. I found enjoyment in learning about why I was here and how I could fashion myself to be ready for my journey back to where I came. There is a chapter in the book, Our Daily Bread, by the Spirit Emmanuel, psychographed by Chico Xavier again, which lays out the importance of being spiritually productive. And this is what Jesus says: walk while you have the light so that the darkness does not overtake you. What does that mean? This is what it's told us by Emmanuel. Meditative persons will encounter divine thoughts as they analyze the past and the future. They will see themselves as placed between two eternities, that of the days that have passed and that of the days yet to come. As they examine the treasures of the present, they will discover their precious opportunities. In the future, they foresee the blessed light of immortality, whereas in the past, they behold the darkness of their ignorance, the wrongs they committed, and the experiences they handled badly. A crushing majority of people have no other picture regarding the recent or remote past except one comprised of ruin and disenchantments. This compels them to reevaluate the resources at hand. Thus, in spite of being transitory, human life is the flame that puts you in contact with the work you need to do in order to evolve rightly. By taking advantage of this blessed opportunity, you can learn, attain, accomplish, and reunite. You can redeem, correct, reconcile, and enrich yourself in the Lord. Reflect on the Master's remark, and you will grasp its enlightened meaning. Walk while you have the light, he said. Take advantage of the gift of time you have received by doing spiritually constructive work. Lift yourself from your lower condition by acquiring a higher understanding. Without the signs of improvement and accomplishments as you go along, you will be dominated by the darkness. That is, you will waste your sacred opportunity by turning to unworthy impulses. And after death of the body, you will return to the same place of darkness from which you emerged in order to climb new steps on the sublime mountain of life. This is so true. We spend our time in unworthy pursuits. I had to be shocked out of that. I had to be shocked. So I started really understanding the spirit world, my own spirituality. And this happens to people you read about this. If you read about near-death experiences, NDEs, people come out of NDEs. They don't come out the same. They come out saying, "Oh my heavens, what have I been doing? I have been putting the emphasis on the wrong priorities. I need to help people. I need to help myself. I need to spiritually grow." And I tell you, once you get into Spiritism, reading and studying about a hidden world, an invisible dimension, is exciting, revealing, edifying, and life-changing. It will replace older non-productive pastimes with a world of infinite possibilities, a universe in which you have an eternity to fully explore. So, again, I just want to tell you, this is all in my book, How to Live, Inner Peace Through Spiritism. I go through each of the 24 verses of this poem, and I go through what I think what Andre Luiz is trying to tell us about is time spent on productive matters. It is twofold, as I explained before. it is that we need to learn that, yes, our normal character, our programming, whatever you want to say, our personality is we like to keep busy. And the spirit world doesn't want lazy people. So, oh yeah, okay, I've been good. That's it for me. They want intellectually inquisitive. They want people that want to learn more. It's like any company, right? They don't want someone to say, oh yeah, I can do that job, but that's it. I'm never going to do another job again. No, they want people, oh, I want to do the next and the next. I want to learn more and more. The spirit world wants us to be intellectually curious. They want us to want to work. And we're on Earth, right? Why are we on Earth? We are on Earth not to become intellectual geniuses, not to amass wealth. We're on Earth to reform our character, to make our personality better, to have love, compassion, and goodness and gratitude that are part of our character. And in that, Gabriel, how can I buy? Well, Gabriel, if you go to my website, NW Spiritism, you can buy that book. Go to Amazon.com. You can click on the book, but you can go to Amazon.com, Brazil, and then I'm sure you can get the book sent to you. It's not in Portuguese, unfortunately. It is in English, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism. And I've had quite a few on Kindle. If you have Kindle, very easy. They will download it to your Kindle. I've had quite a few people buy my books from Brazil. So, and of course, so this is what it means. So it's a combination of learning to work and then parceling out time for you to be also spiritually inquisitive, for you to understand why you're here. Because once you understand why you're here, it's like, oh my heavens, this is why this happened to me. And then I tell you, the most fantastic thing starts happening to you is you understand the signs and signals that are given to you. You go, give an example, like my wife and I, we wanted to buy a different house. Every time we went somewhere, we were always too late, too little, someone was whatever. And we said, okay, well, it looks like the spirit doesn't want us to buy something. We're here, right? And we found there's a reason for that. And you go through life with a much easier flow. And you kind of, not to be lazy, not to be passive, but if you want to do something, you keep knocking on it until finally you understand the signs and signals saying, oh, okay, that's not the path I should go on. I should go over here. It's like friends of ours that, they wanted to go to Brazil to go to John of God, right? And they wanted to go very quickly. And it was just like it was all of a sudden everything came in place. They got their they got their passport, they got the visa, they got the ticket. I mean, everything's like ever happened so easy before. That is showing that the spirit world said, okay, we're going to facilitate this. I can't tell you how many times when we've done something, like, oh, I can't believe that. And then the spirit world facilitates something to get us out of it. It's amazing. And then Gabriel said, that's why I want this. I'll learn and search my soul and practice my English. That's perfect. Yeah. So Gabriel, you can get that on Kindle very easily. How to live inner peace through spiritism. But this is when you start seeing these things. And people who have NDEs, I keep talking about when you have a near-death experiences, that's not a random thing. That's not like, oh, okay, it just happened to you. No, that's like going to school and you're in classroom and, you're not doing too well. The teacher's been worried about you. And then the vice principal says, you, come here. Let's go talk about this for a second. And then you talk to the vice principal. You understand. You say, okay, I'm going to do better, etc. Because he tells you what you've done, what you need to do, and you go back to class. That's really, in essence, what a near-death experience is. That's why so many people have them. And that's what's so, there's good and bad things about the internet, but that's a good thing about the internet. You can read these other stories. In fact, I've written 2 books about NDEs in which I describe what people are actually seeing. There is so much there for them to understand. So anyway, I just want to stop here. I want to thank everyone for being part of our program today. Again, I want to ask everyone, please share this video. Please share with people my blog, nwspiritism.com, my YouTube channel, my BitChute channel. Please share people that your experiences on Kardec Facebook page and Kardec Radio. and as spiritists, we don't evangelize, make ourselves a nuisance to people, but what we do is we're there with information. So the Spirits book, again, read the Spirits book. It is wonderful. I want to thank everyone. I want to say God bless everyone who are here, listening tonight. And who, please share this to Facebook, whoever listens to this. Know that God and Jesus loves you more than you can ever imagine. And everything that happens to you, it's not punishment, it's love. And that, as we said before, the theme of this program is let us be here. Let us work on productive matters, right? Materially productive and spiritually productive. God bless and good night.